All right, good morning, everyone, or actually almost good afternoon. So I hope everyone has spent some time in their Google Classroom doing some learning tasks and interacting with your classmates. It's really important right now that we all stay connected with each other. So take that time in your Google Classrooms. Use your Flipgrid. Everyone wants to hear your voice. I know I miss you guys so much. Mr. Sellers does too. So we're doing our best to keep connected, and I hope that you're enjoying our morning announcements and our read alouds. All right, so when we left off with Harry Potter, we were, let's see. Oh, they were with Hagrid, and Hagrid was, hold on a second, my kitty. Kitty, get down. Get down. Kitty. Kitty, get off. Get down. Sorry, Kitty is not being a good girl. Oh, actually, Kitty isn't a girl at all. Kitty's a boy. He's not being a good boy. I'm sure he'll be up here in my lap in just a minute, getting some snuggles. Okay, so let's get comfortable. All right, so when we left off, Hagrid was getting ready to teach his first class, and they had some new magical creatures that they were getting introduced to. "Gee up there," he roared, shaking the chains and urging the creatures toward the fence where the class stood. Everyone drew back slightly as Hagrid reached them and tethered the creatures to the fence. "Hippogriffs," Hagrid roared happily, waving a hand at them. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Harry could sort of see what Hagrid meant. Once you got over the first shock of seeing something that was half horse, half bird, you started to appreciate the hippogriffs' gleaming coats, changing smoothly from feather to hair, each of them a different color: stormy gray, bronze, pinkish roan, gleaming chestnut, and inky black. "So," said Hagrid, rubbing his hands together and beaming around, "if you wanter come a bit nearer." No one seemed to want to. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, however, approached the fence cautiously. "Now, first thing you gotta know about hippogriffs is they're proud," said Hagrid. "Easily offended, hippogriffs are. Don't never insult one, 'cause it might be the last thing you do." Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle weren't listening. They were talking in an undertone, and Harry had a nasty feeling they were plotting how best to disrupt the lesson. "You always wait for the hippogriffs to make the first move," Hagrid continued. "It's polite, see? You walk towards them, and you bow, and you wait. If he bows back, you're allowed to touch him. If he doesn't bow, then get away from him sharpish, 'cause those talons hurt." "Right. Who wants to go first?" Most of the class backed away further in answer. Even Harry, Ron, and Hermione had misgivings. The hippogriffs were tossing their fierce heads and flexing their powerful wings. They didn't seem to like being tethered like this. "No one?" said Hagrid with a pleading look. "I'll do it," said Harry. There was an intake of breath from behind him. Both Lavender and Pavarti whispered, "Oh, no. Harry, remember your tea leaves." Harry ignored them. He climbed over the paddock fence. "Good man, Harry," roared Hagrid. "Right then. Let's see how you get on with Buckbeak." He untied one of the chains, pulled the gray hippogriff away from his fellows, and slipped off its leather collar. The class on the other side of the paddock seemed to be holding its breath. Malfoy's eyes were narrowly malicious. "Easy now, Harry," said Hagrid quietly. "You got eye contact. Now try not to blink. Hippogriffs don't trust you if you blink too much." Harry's eyes immediately began to water, but he didn't shut them. Buckbeak had turned his great, sharp head and was staring Harry with one fierce orange eye. "That's it, Harry. That's it. Harry, now, bow." Harry didn't feel much like exposing the back of his neck to Buckbeak, but he did as he was told. He gave a short bow and then looked up. The hippogriff was still staring haughtily at him. It didn't move. "Ah," said Hagrid, sounding worried. "Right. Back away now, Harry. Easy does it." But then, to Harry's enormous surprise, the hippogriff suddenly bent its scaly front knees and sank into what was unmistakable bow. "Well done, Harry," said Hagrid, ecstatic. "Right! Ye can touch him. Pet his beak, go on." Feeling that a better reward should have been to back away, Harry slowly moved toward the hippogriff and reached out towards it. He patted the beak several times, and the hippogriff closed its eyes lazily, as though enjoying it. The class broke into applause, all except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were looking deeply disappointed. "Right then, Harry," said Hagrid. "I reckon he may let you ride him." This was more than Harry had bargained for. He was used to a broomstick, but he wasn't sure a hippogriff would be quite the same. "Ye climb up there, just behind the wing joint," said Hagrid. "And mind you don't pull any feathers out. He won't like that." Harry put his foot on top of Buckbeak's wing and hoisted himself onto his back. Buckbeak stood up. Harry wasn't sure where to hold on. Everything in front of him was covered in feathers. "Go on, then," roared Hagrid, slapping the hippogriff's hindquarters. Without warning, the 12-foot wings flapped open on either side of Harry. He just had enough time to seize the hippogriff around the neck before he was soaring upward. It was nothing like a broomstick, and Harry knew which one he preferred. The hippogriff's wings beat uncomfortably on either side of him, catching him under his legs and making him feel he was about to be thrown off. The glossy feathers slipped under his fingers, but he didn't dare get a stronger grip. Instead of the smooth actions of his Nimbus 2000, he now felt himself rocking backward and forward as the hindquarters of the hippogriff rose and fell with the wings. Buckbeak flew him once around the paddock and then headed back to the ground. This was the bit Harry had been dreading. He leaned back as the smooth neck lowered, feeling he was going to slip off over the beak, then felt a heavy thud as the 4 ill-assorted feet hit the ground. He just managed to hold on and push himself straight again. "Good work, Harry!" roared Hagrid as everyone except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle cheered. "Okay, who else wants to go?" Emboldened by Harry's success, the rest of the class climbed cautiously into the paddock. Hagrid untied the hippogriffs one by one, and soon people were bowing nervously all over the paddock. Neville ran repeatedly backward from his, which didn't seem to want to bend his knee. Ron and Hermione practiced on the chestnut while Harry watched. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle had taken over Buckbeak. He had bowed to Malfoy, who was now patting his beak, looking disdainful. "This was very easy," drawled Malfoy, loud enough for Harry to hear him. "I knew it must have been if Potter could do it." "I bet you're not dangerous at all, are you?" he said to the hippogriff. "Are you, you great ugly brute?" It happened in a flash of steely talons. Malfoy let out a high-pitched scream, and the next moment, Hagrid was wrestling Buckbeak back into its collar as he strained to get at Malfoy, who lay curled in the grass, blood blossoming over his robes. "I'm dying!" yelled Malfoy as the class panicked. "I'm dying! Look at me! It's killed me!" "You're not dying!" said Hagrid, who had gone very white. "Someone help me! Gotta get him out of here!" Hermione ran to hold open the gate as Hagrid lifted Malfoy easily. As they passed, Harry saw that there was a long, deep gash on Malfoy's arm. Blood spattered the grass, and Hagrid ran with him up the slope towards the castle. Very shaken, the Care of Magical Creatures class followed at a walk. The Slytherins were all shouting about Hagrid. "They should fire him straight away," said Pansy Parkinson, who was in tears. "It was Malfoy's fault," snapped Dean Thomas. Crabbe and Goyle flexed their muscles threateningly. They all climbed the stone steps into the deserted entrance hall. "I'm going to see if he's okay," said Pansy, and they all watched her run up the marble staircase. The Slytherins, still muttering about Hagrid, headed away in the direction of their dungeon common room. Harry, Ron, and Hermione proceeded upstairs to the Gryffindor Tower. "Do you think he'll be all right?" said Hermione nervously. "Course he will. Madame Pomfrey can mend cuts in about a second," said Harry, who had had far worse injuries mended magically by the nurse. "That was a really bad thing to happen to Hagrid's first class, though, wasn't it?" said Ron, looking worried. "Trust Malfoy to mess things up for him." They were among the first to reach the Great Hall at dinner time, hoping to see Hagrid, but he wasn't there. "They wouldn't fire him, would they?" said Hermione anxiously, not touching her steak and kidney pudding. "They'd better not," said Ron, who wasn't eating either. Harry was watching the Slytherin table. A large group, including Crabbe and Goyle, was huddled together, deep in conversation. Harry was sure they were cooking up their own version of how Malfoy had been injured. "Well, you can't say it wasn't an interesting first day back," said Ron gloomily. They went up to the crowded Gryffindor common room after dinner and tried to do homework Professor McGonagall had given them. But all three of them kept breaking off and glancing out of the tower window. "There's a light on in Hagrid's window," said Harry suddenly. Ron looked at his watch. "If we hurried, we could go down and see him. It's still quite early." "I don't know," said Hermione slowly, and Harry saw her glance at him. "I'm allowed to walk the grounds," he said pointedly. "Sirius Black hasn't got past the Dementors here, has he?" So they put their things away and headed out the portrait hole, glad not to meet anyone on their way to the front doors, as they weren't entirely sure they were supposed to be out. The grass was still wet and looked almost black in the twilight. When they reached Hagrid's hut, they knocked and a voice growled, "Come in." Hagrid was sitting in his short shirt sleeves at his scrubbed wooden table. His boarhound, Fang, had his head in Hagrid's lap. One look told them that Hagrid had been drinking a lot, and there was pewter tankard almost as big as a bucket in front of him. He seemed to be having difficulty getting them into focus. "'Spect it's a record," he said thickly when he recognized them. "Don't reckon they've ever had a teacher who lasted only one day before." "You haven't been fired, Hagrid," gasped Hermione. "Not yet," said Hagrid miserably, taking a huge gulp of whatever had been in his tankard. "But it's only a matter of time, ain't it, after Malfoy?" "How is he?" said Ron as they all settled down. "It wasn't serious, was it?" Madame Pomfrey fixed him up best she could," said Hagrid dully. "But he's saying it's still agony, covered in bandages, moaning." "He's faking it," said Harry at once. "Madame Pomfrey can mend anything. She regrew half my bones after last year. Trust Malfoy to milk it for all it's worth." "School governors haven't been told, of course," said Hagrid miserably. "They reckon I started too big. Should have left hippogriffs for later. Done flobberworms or summit. Just thought I'd make a good first lesson. It's all my fault. It's all Malfoy's fault, Hagrid, said Hermione earnestly. We're witnesses, said Harry. You said hippogriffs attack you if you insult them, but it's Malfoy's problem he wasn't listening. We'll tell Dumbledore what really happened. Yeah, don't worry, Hagrid. We'll back you up, said Ron. Tears leaked out of the crinkled corners of Hagrid's beetle black eyes. He grabbed both Harry and Hermione and pulled them into a bone-breaking hug. Letting go of Harry and Ron, who were both staggering away, rubbing their ribs, Hagrid heaved himself out of his chair and followed Hermione unsteadily outside. They heard a loud splash. What's he done? Said Harry nervously as Hermione came back with an empty tankard. He stuck his head in the water barrel, said Hermione, putting the tankard away. Hagrid came back, his long hair and beard sopping wet, wiping the water out of his eyes. That's better, he said, shaking his head like a dog and drenching them all. Listen, it was good of you to come and see me. Hagrid stopped dead, staring at Harry as though he'd only just realized he was there. What do you think you're doing, eh? He roared, so suddenly that they jumped a foot in the air. You're not to go wandering around after dark, Harry. And you too. Letting him? Hagrid strode over to Harry, grabbed him by his arm, and pulled him to the door. Come on, Hagrid said angrily. I'm taking you back to your school, and don't you let me catch you walking around to see me after dark again. I'm not worth that. All right, so that was the end of chapter 6. Tomorrow we will start on chapter 7. Not tomorrow. Look at me. All these days running together with our online home learning. Tomorrow is Saturday, so we all get to take a break, and we will start back with Harry Potter on Monday. Don't forget to be awesome today. See you later.